minimum wage is due to be introduced into Germany next year, but why now when the economy is just getting back on track? And what will the knock-on effect be for the rest of Europe? With me now is Holger Schmieding, Chief Economist of Berenberg Bank. Well, Holger, obviously next year, Germany, Europe's strongest economy, will introduce minimum wage. Why now?
This has nothing to do with economics. That is pure politics, because Chancellor Angela Merkel lost her coalition partner in the last election. She had to take on board a centre-left party. And as a condition for joining Merkel, the centre-left simply demanded a minimum wage. Merkel granted that, and now it's just a question, will it do a lot of damage or not?
So you think it is political fodder just because elections are looming?
The economic logic, if you just look at the German economy, it's doing well. The labour market is doing extremely well. You would not say there is a need to interfere in the German labour market. If it's not broken, don't fix it. But political logic has dictated Germany to do otherwise.
Labour unions traditionally determine wages in Germany, so why do you think this is changing?
Traditionally, labour unions in Germany were against a minimum wage because they were setting wages branch by branch, sector by sector in negotiations. But 10-15 years ago, Germany had record unemployment. As a result of that, unions lost power. So there are now significant parts of the economy where the unions are no longer negotiating wages. And hence the union attitude to minimum wages has shifted. They now want basically the government to set a floor for all wages and then negotiate in a way the top-ups for certain sectors.
Well, it is widely understood by economists that minimum wage perhaps causes unemployment. Do you subscribe to this?
Yes, an excessive minimum wage does cause unemployment. Having said that, Germany at the moment has a booming labour market. Germany actually needs more qualified workers. So while the demand for labour is strong, the minimum wage will have only very small negative effects on some of the low-skilled people who will find it more difficult to get a job. But for the next few years, we are not going to see a major negative impact of the minimum wage. That may come if, in the future, the economy turns down or if the minimum wage is then raised too much.
Well, Deutsche Bank actually estimated that 450,000 to 1 million jobs could be lost if this is implemented by 2017. Do you think this is accurate?
That is probably an exaggeration. We will have job losses, yes, but while the economy is doing well, they will be very, very small. The real job losses will come during and after the next recession. And I sort of hope that the next recession is not due by 2017.
Well, considering Germany and Europe is still recovering from the recession, is 2017 too early to implement economic systematic change?
There are ways to mitigate the negative impact of the minimum wage. If there is more of a wage subsidy for low-skilled people, then, for instance, the negative impact of the minimum wage, that employers don't want to hire the low skill because they're not productive enough, then with wage subsidies that economic impact, the negative one, could be reduced. That is a debate for the future. The point remains, the minimum wage is bad, the damage will initially be small, and we'll have to see some 5 to 10 years from now how bad the damage will really be.
How do you think it will impact Germany in terms of competitiveness?
It has virtually no impact on German competitiveness because the industrial firms, the German firms, the brand name firms, the cars, those firms producing these cars will not have any significant impact of that. They qualify highly skilled people who are much more productive, whose wages are far above the minimum wage. The real impact will be on parts of the domestic economy where you have comparatively low skilled people.
Well, countries without a minimum wage, such as Germany, have very low youth unemployment, whereas the UK, since minimum wage was implemented in 1999, youth unemployment has soared. So what do you think will happen once this is introduced to Germany's youth?
Probably we're not going to see, again, a negative impact immediately because at the moment employers are looking for young people. They can't get enough of them because of partly Germany's demographics. Germany didn't have a lot of babies 15, 20 years ago. It will only be on those who have no exam, who have not finished school properly, that is, who have very little qualifications.
Well, now up to 2011, conscription was enforced in Germany, but that's not the case anymore. So do you think with the introduction of minimum wage, perhaps we could be looking at the future a work-shy population in Germany?
The minimum wage is not so high that a lot of people would say, I'm not productive enough, I don't try to work, or that a lot of people would say, okay, I take a job with a minimum wage and don't aspire to do better. In that sense, it's probably not very damaging.
Well, of course, we need to mention inflation. So how do you think this will affect Germany when minimum wage is implemented?
We will likely see a modest rise in prices in some sectors. For instance, a basic haircut, which is actually often semi-qualified labor doing that. A basic haircut may become more expensive because wages for some haircutters, especially in East Germany, are half the current minimum wage. So in some sectors we'll see an impact. But cars will not get more expensive, energy will not get more expensive, food will only get a little more expensive. Overall, the impact of the minimum wage on prices may be an upward adjustment by 0.1 to 0.2% on average at most.
So finally, if you're just going to sum it up for me, how will this affect Europe overall?
The German minimum wage is not going to have a major impact on Europe. It will not put a major dent in German competitiveness. It will, in the long run, hurt German labor market, hurt German public finances a little, but only to an extent which Germany's neighbors will probably not feel very much.
So you're not too concerned about it?
I think the German minimum wage is a mistake. But if it's not done too badly, if it's not raised too much, it will not be an extremely costly mistake, just a completely unnecessary mistake.
Holger, thank you.
You're welcome.